Welcome to A Warm Embrace, your go-to destination for all things motivation. I'm your host, Guillermo Lopez, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you to explore the endless possibilities of self-improvement, personal growth, and achieving your dreams. Today, I'm excited that we're being joined by Dr. Elizabeth Wisniewski. Dr. Elizabeth is a Webster and perinatal certified chiropractor working at the intersection of clinical practice, social justice, and somatics. She's passionate about holistic perinatal education and care for all people. As a person with visual impairment who has experienced over 30 surgeries, she enjoys helping others turn their challenges into assets. Dr. Elizabeth practices in Ventura and Santa Barbara, California, as well as virtually. Welcome, Dr. Elizabeth. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me here today. It's such an honor.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you very much once again for joining us. Let me offer a bit of context about what we mean by a warm embrace. It's about cultivating an environment where individuals are not only acknowledged, but truly valued, understood, and embraced. We've built an ecosystem focused on ensuring that everyone feels seen, heard, and loved. And this is the guiding principle that extends across various dimensions of life, which is personal, professional, emotional, and spiritual. Once again, we're genuinely delighted to have you, Dr. Elizabeth, and we're excited to learn more about from your unique perspectives and insights. So without further delay, if you're ready to embark on this enriching journey with us, I am too.
Yes, let's do it.
Great, let's dive in. So today we'll be talking about overcoming obstacles and turning challenges into opportunities for growth. Considering your personal and professional backgrounds, why don't you start off by telling us what today's theme means to you?
So I've had a lot of challenges with, like you mentioned in my bio, over 30 eye surgeries for a really rare eye disease. It's a retinal disease where my retina is detached and I had bleeding in my eyes. And so slowly over time, I grew up being able to see and then I lost my vision over time. That's a big challenge, especially losing my eyesight in one eye when I was 14 and then my other eye when I was 21 and had just finished undergrad and was on a path to law school and had just taken the LSAT. And then the universe provided me with this opportunity to go in a really different direction. And so I'm in a place now of gratitude and love and joy and really reverence for that experience. When I was young, it was hard and it was a big challenge. So that's kind of where I'm diving in today under this topic.
That's beautiful. And I truly understand how the whole concept of the universe having a different plan for us. My prior path was practicing immigration attorney, and I'm now in a completely different path. So I do completely understand where you're coming from. I can't say that I share your physical conditions, but I truly understand the whole ebb and flow of life, where it takes us from where we think we're going, and the universe and the higher power takes us in a completely different journey, and being able to find gratitude in that.
Absolutely. And people now, when they meet me, they're like, oh, it really seems like you can just talk about this and you're okay. And I'm like, mostly I am. I'll let you know if I'm not, because there's definitely days and times where I feel somatically in my body and my soma more emotion around it, or I'm not feeling as open. But typically, because I've done the work through therapy and somatic-based therapy and all sorts of practices of yoga and mindfulness, that I've been able to be now in this grounded, connected place where I can talk about my lived experience of being a person with visual impairment. And I really focus on person-centered language. So that's why I'm always putting that first instead of just being like, I'm blind, which for me lands in this really sharp, kind of pejorative way in my body, or just being like, I am visually impaired, because it doesn't define me. So I really strive to say I'm a person first with visual impairment, but that doesn't make up all of me or my experience.
It goes back to definition. I mean, that's beautiful where you're saying how about the importance of words, because at the end of the day, it's very true. I was actually in a conversation last week where I was having dinner with some friends, and one of my friends had mentioned that she was having a rather rough beginning to her year. And she mentioned that the rough beginning to her year is because her business wasn't doing well. And the reason that she said it is because we had been in a prior call with some other friends of ours. And she said, I didn't feel like I could offer anything in terms of my wins because my version of myself is my business. It struck a chord with me because the truth of the matter is that many of us, we tend to define ourselves by what we do when that's not realistically who we are. That's a part of who we are, but that's not who defines us. And that the verbiage, how you're mentioning that you are a person first and we are all people first. And the way that you say that is actually a beautiful thing. It's a reminder of how we need to go ahead and express ourselves, that we are people first, and what we do is secondary or tertiary to that effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I coming, from being a business owner and an entrepreneur, that can be really challenging because
Hmm.
I know I spend a lot of late nights working on my other businesses and I'm going, and I'm like, I'm a doctor, I'm this, I'm that. But then I have to come back to myself and my soul and my soma and be like, I'm a person having this experience. Everything else comes later, like you just said. And so that's part of that practice to bring us back into our soul and our soma and who we really, the essence of who we are. It's kind of like our soul's that homeopathic remedy of like a true essence. And that's that person centered feeling, expression, and language that I feel is really important for how we can then move through our challenges and not be defined by them. We can certainly learn from them and they're part of us and our experience, but they don't have to be our entire identity.
Very true. Very wise words. So let me go ahead and dive right into one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. Can you share a personal story or experience where you faced a significant obstacle and turned it into an opportunity for growth? I think you've already mentioned a little bit about that. If you can go ahead and expand on that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So, one of my examples is I was a freshman in high school. I was a swimmer for many years and I was at swim practice and I was going in for a flip turn. And all of a sudden, I just couldn't see the wall of the pool. And I didn't hit it. What happened is my retina had detached as part of my eye disease. And when a retina detaches, it's like a black curtain dropping and then you just can't see anything. So, I had emergency surgery. And then 5 weeks later, my other retina detached. And those surgeries are very intense on the body. It took weeks for my eyes to be able to physically open because of all the trauma from the surgeries. During this time, I'm a freshman in high school, so I'm taking classes like geometry, which is a really visual type of math. My mom, who had breast cancer for the third time at that moment, she was a special education teacher. So we came up with ways of looking at the course objectives and meeting them in a different way. She created these pegboards with nails and rubber bands, so I would feel the shapes such as a triangle and do the Pythagorean theorem. And I really learned how to do things in a different way, even though I still today consider myself a visual learner. But I began to cultivate somatic practices. And soma or somatic is the lived experience of the body. It's a first person perspective. So I began to feel that, and we created graphs because in geometry, you're also doing a lot of graphing. And it had dried noodles as the X and Y axis that were glued on, and we carved all the lines in. So I would drag my fingernail to graph everything. And so I was learning all of that. And later on in my freshman year, that's when I never got the eyesight back in my right eye. My mother actually passed away from breast cancer. So it was a really, really hard time. Thank you. We're coming up on the 25th anniversary here in like a week and a half since this happened, which is pretty wild to me. But also special because her memory is like so deep with me and in my body. But she really set me up for success. And so jumping ahead 7 years or so, graduate undergrad with an environmental studies, political science double major. I was really interested in environmental law. I studied abroad 3 times, working on environmental and social justice issues throughout the Americas. Was on this journey, have my 30th eye surgery, and I was supposed to gain more vision back in my left eye because I could still see out of it. And I woke up and I immediately knew just in my heart and in my soul that I had lost my vision. And that's what happened. So here I am. I'm young. I have a college degree, but all my plans are shifting. And I end up hearing a commercial from massage school, and I go to that for 6 months. And 2 weeks into that 6-month program, I tell my dad, thank you for paying for undergrad. I'm going to go in a different direction. I really feel I'm meant to be a chiropractor. He supported me. So then I went back and had to take all of my science classes, like chemistry and physics, without being able to see them. But my mom had set me up for success of, okay, here's the course objectives. How can I get there in a different way? And I did all the chemistry equations out loud verbally with the professors. I created different models to do the physics classes, and I was able to make my way through that and not only become a doctor once, but then additionally get a PhD later on. So that's an example of really being creative and using our other senses in order to make our way through a challenge.
That's amazing. The story behind this, it actually leads well with innovation, which is actually this week's theme that I'm exploring. And one of the quotes that I was really listening and resonating with was the concept of call for innovation, and innovation leads to progress. And so, with regard to how you needed to move forward, there was this knowing, but the support that you received from your mother, I find it serendipitous the fact that we are right now this week talking, and it's 25 years nearly to the passing of your mother. And the theme that we're speaking about today or this week works hand in hand, and how it goes to actually overcoming whatever challenge that we need to overcome, and how we can go ahead and find the beauty and find the blessing where we need to find it.
That's a beautiful synchronicity.
Yes. Let me go ahead and ask you, and I wanted to go ahead and move on to the next role, because at the end of the day, it really goes hand in hand with how you went ahead and pivoted. And that question is, what role does mindset play in overcoming obstacles? And how can individuals cultivate a resilient mindset in the face of adversity?
Well, another example coming from my mom is we had our job charts up on the refrigerator. The last thing on everyone's list, including my parents, was, what was your attitude today? And we had to be really honest. Did you have a positive attitude? And this doesn't need to come out of a place of toxic positivity or spiritual bypass where we're just like glazing over, but it's a true check-in with yourself of, how was I dealing with my adversities today? What was my attitude? Because at the end of the day, that's all we can really control is our reaction, our attitude. We can't control all the other variables around us. So that really helped me. And then after chiropractic school, and I learned all these tools, I became a yoga teacher. And that is what shifted my mindfulness practice of getting deeper into meditation and breath work. And eventually I learned to play the Indian instrument, the harmonium, and chant kirtan, dropped more into that experience of just being present, creating my own rituals where I'll use sage spray or rose water spray. And it's those moments of mindfulness. And it doesn't need to be that you're sitting on a bolster or yoga mat for hours a day meditating. You could be washing your dishes and be mindful. You could be petting your dog and being mindful. So finding those moments where you just drop in and you're present and you're noticing, oh, my breath is slowing down. I feel my heart slowing down. You're being present with that interoceptive awareness of what's happening within your body. That for me is mindfulness. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It can just be a breath, a moment. And having those throughout the day really helps me reconnect to myself and my purpose.
That's excellent. And I use those moments as well, because I think that in those moments in my life, I find a way to reconnect with myself. And when I'm able to reconnect with myself and find my center, if you will, it really allows me to put my best persona, my best essence forward. Because if not, then I'm not doing any service to anybody. I'm not doing a service to myself. I'm not doing a service to my loved ones. I'm not doing any service to my team members, because if there's a separation between myself and them, there is no genuine connection. When we take a moment to really connect with ourselves, then that goes to the beautiful connection with others. And that mindfulness thought is really key, especially when we can go ahead and really be able to allow for that interaction between ourselves and those people that are around us, and also that higher power that's with us.
Absolutely. And we have to be connected in ourselves first in order to better connect with people around us or animals around us, nature, all of that. So again, it's coming back to, it's not that you're self-centered, but you're recentering yourself.
Yes, I like that. And sometimes we find that difficulty when we're thinking about self. We think about we can only be our best to others when we truly are able to care for ourselves.
Agree 100%. And it can be challenging to be like, am I selfish right now? And then to recenter, take a breath, take a moment and be like, no, this is okay. I needed to go get this massage or do this yoga class or whatever it may be to come back, and then you can give more.
And you mentioned something early on in one of your answers where you were talking about the moment that you have to go ahead and sometimes think about, you didn't necessarily use this word, but I interpret it as you were in a lower vibration where you needed to go ahead and check in with yourself, how you're doing. And it goes back to the words that we're using. So with that, what are some potential pitfalls and or obstacles that individuals may encounter when trying to overcome challenges? And how can they be addressed?
I see this often in my practice where my practice members as a perinatal chiropractor, I'll be like, you're in your head right now. Let's drop into your body. So I think we can get up there and kind of float away and not be present with ourselves or anything around us. And that's the biggest thing I notice, especially because I take care of a lot of pregnant people, and I'll see people while they're in early and active labor. And I'm like, let's drop in, let's use our voice. You said vibration earlier, like we can change our tone and vibration by singing or dancing, praying, meditating, all of that. So what I noticed, the biggest pitfall is being in our head. And I really truly believe that Descartes did us a disservice as humans of saying, I think, therefore I am, because that's a separation, saying mind over matter. But when we look at the root word of matter, it comes from Sanskrit, mata, which is mother. And so we're separating from ourselves, from the great mother archetype. And so I really try to say body-mind connection instead of mind-body, and remember that they're equal and they're not separate.
That's a very interesting concept. I had never thought about it. We hear often the mind-body connection, and I guess it does go back to theories and philosophies where, as you say, Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. But the truth of the matter is that, yes, you're very right. Our bodies are just as powerful and important as the mind. And we seem to really create a separation there because we've always think is like, oh no, I can go ahead and overcome this because if we put our mind to it. Well, that could very well be true, but we are negating the truth of the fact that we are body as well, especially when we consider the whole notion that we are spiritual beings living a human experience. We need to actually care for that body that we're using to live that experience.
That's a vehicle for our evolution, or whatever your practices and beliefs might be, if your practices are around things like reincarnation. But we do need to, because the soma, the body, it's so important to our lived experience and being present with that. And so I feel that it's important in order for us to be in this space where we can embrace both the masculine and feminine energies within all of us and be in that place of homeostasis or balance. That body-mind connection is really important.
And you mentioned before, obviously, I see the innovation and the creativity and the perseverance that you've had to employ in your life to go ahead and be able to pivot and be able to accommodate your different situations and your different experiences. With that being said, how can individuals maintain motivation and perseverance when facing long-term or recurring obstacles?
First off, you got to be like, hey, I'm a human and I'm not going to be perfect at this. And recognize this is a practice. Just like I practice chiropractic as a doctor, you practice law. It's all a practice. And so giving yourself some grace and ease around any situation. Another tool I find helpful, if I'm getting really triggered or activated by something, I will put it in brackets, whether it's in conversation with my partner or a family member. I'm like, hey, I'm going to bracket this and then I want to come back to it. But I'll do that in my life too. When I have really big challenges in my past businesses, I'm like, I'm going to give myself an hour to be really upset about this, and then I'm going to go forward. So I'll give myself not like a timeout, but a time in of you can be really in this in your body and your mind and your soul and be really upset and then move forward.
That's amazing. I like that whole concept of the brackets because I tend to use brackets in my writing. I've never thought about using brackets in my conversations or in my life. It's a great suggestion. I'll definitely go ahead and deploy that.
From the page into the experience, right? Your writing can teach you.
Exactly. And we never think about that. It's so funny how we can find inspiration from unexpected places. I love how you just were able to go ahead and put that bracket and bring it into life. And what you're
Yes.
and you said, and I don't want to tune out. Let me tune in. Let me take that break. Let me actually go ahead and be upset about this, but for an hour. Let me feel it for that hour. You're actually taking control of it. It's a beautiful thing.
We could call it the embodied bracket. And there's definitely been times where I'm like, okay, I'm still kind of really mad about this. I'm going to hit snooze, but I'll get 9 more minutes. But then I'm really done with this. And I truly find that's a huge practice for me and it really, really helps me be more mindful, because otherwise we can just get stuck and it takes us over our body mind. And so it's like you said, coming back into I'm choosing my actions, my attitude, I'm having control, I'm being in relationship with this, and then I can move forward.
I love that. I want to go back to mention something what you were also talking about. Obviously, your experience has been a whirlwind, if you will, of many experiences. And you spoke 25 years since your mother's passing, and there's been having to go ahead and continuously pivot. But aside from moving forward, which you've evidently done, you have your chiropractic practice, you also have the yoga practice and the people that you're helping. You've undoubtedly suffered setbacks, as you mentioned, that there was that moment where, despite the fact that you were expected to get better, you knew that you weren't going to get your sight back. And so, with that said, in what ways can setbacks or failures be a valuable learning experience? How do you think they can contribute to personal growth and resilience?
I think that a setback is just giving us some extra time and space to be present with our experience. And within that extra time and space, something will emerge. It comes from a Jungian principle called holding the tension of opposite. So Carl Jung would talk about we have these two opposite pulls or energies pulling on us. Eventually, if we stay present with that discomfort, because it's not fun to be in that space, a third thing will emerge. So if you stay with it, this other energy, this other idea will emerge. So being in that setback, but also being like, oh, I should be in this other space. That's, just be present with it and wait for it to call to you. Maybe in your dreams or when you're writing, you're painting. Just keep expressing yourself however you want, dancing, writing music, and that other thing will come forward. So I think it's just giving us time for that third thing to emerge, call us into the next part of our life.
I love that. I've always been one that I've subscribed to that saying where it says, if you sit in the problem long enough, the answer will come. It's really sitting in that pressure cooker of life. But I loved what you just said. You just said, that's fine. We can go ahead and be in that discomfort. We need to be in that discomfort. That's how we grow. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to suffer through it. You just said, let me sing through it. Let me dance through it. And let me go ahead and, by doing so, open myself to that answer from the avenue or from the side that I wasn't necessarily expecting. When I think about how I would think, it's the whole concept of sitting in that pressure cooker. I think of a pressure cooker, what is going on in there. The ingredients aren't enjoying it, but if we change that mindset, it goes back to the mindset. Let me go ahead and sing through it. Let me dance through it. Let me live through it. It makes the discomfort bearable, more bearable, because we're already allowing for the next to come.
And I like that you're using pressure cooker because it reminds me of true alchemy, of turning lead into gold. And the alchemists, that was their actual literal physical goal. But it had to go through 7 stages. And there's fire twice, there's coagulation, there's all these different phases in alchemy. And our soul is going through alchemy as well, if we look at it from a Jungian perspective like that. And that's where my PhD is in depth psychology, so it's all Jungian based. And so we're in that pressure cooker, we're in that muck. I mean, Jung would call it the prima materia, which is, prima materia is like the primal forces of material of life, like we're coming from the earth. And so it takes time to turn our souls and ourselves into gold. That's not an easy feat. And so we have to be in places and phases that are really uncomfortable and be with it.
It's true. And I'm so grateful for it, to borrow from the metaphor for these nuggets, these golden nuggets that you've shared with us, because at the end of the day, it's amazing. And I've listened to what you've said throughout my different questions. You've given me just a completely different perspective. And I love that, beginning with just our words, being able to go ahead and focus on our mindset. You said how you speak to your patients, you're in your head, let's move to your body, giving that deference to that body, because we are truly experiencing this life as mind and body. I think that's a beautiful thing. And then going to that pressure cooker, because the truth of the matter is that, yes, that's one of my practices that I even to this day, I'm still trying to find peace with, find love with, is the whole idea of being comfortable with the uncomfortable, finding the best in the discomfort. But you just gave me such a tool because I'm one of those people that loves to dance as if nobody's watching. I've always been that type of person. You know what? I'm going to dance. It doesn't matter if I know the steps. I'm going to dance as if nobody's watching. I want to enjoy myself. I want to enjoy the life. But I never thought to go ahead and think in my moments of utmost discomfort, dance through it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that. And so with that, I want to give you an opportunity to give us your nuggets, to just go ahead and say, what are the key takeaways that you want to go ahead and offer? I mean, I know that I grabbed a whole bunch, but I want to go ahead and give you the opportunity just to go ahead and say, you know what, if there's anything out of this episode that I want you to take, this is it.
Wow, yes. There's so much. I've loved this. I'm feeling like just all the frequencies, higher vibrations in my body experience right now. I love talking about these things. And so I'm grateful, I want to say, for this opportunity, and love, enjoy, and gratitude are those highest vibrations offered in our bodies in the universe. So that's where I'm coming from right now. And within that vein is staying present in your body and trusting your body and its awareness and your intuition. I've really had to do that. And I say often, I've lost my eyesight, but I've gained a greater vision for myself and for the world and what I'm putting in the world. And that's coming from trusting my heart and my heart space, my third eye, which is my embodied intuition, and feeling into that. If I feel this embodied no, where there's literally like all the 70 trillion cells in my body are like, no, we're not doing this, I'm going to heed that warning. Or another example, I have a Siberian Husky Jaya, who's out on a walk right now so that he wouldn't be woo-wooing during this. But when I met him at the shelter, I grew up with dogs my whole life, but I don't typically stick my hand in the kennel at a shelter without knowing a dog. And it's on video, stuck my hand in his kennel and I started crying. And on the video, you hear me go, I love him. And we just connected. It was like this amazing intuitive third eye energy connection. And he's been with me for over 5 years now. And that for me was an embodied yes. And so I wait for those cues. And even as a perinatal chiropractor, I tell my practice members, hey, a lot of chiropractors will adjust through things, but if your body gives me a no, I'm not going to do that, because it's more important for me to know when not to adjust than to adjust. I wait for those cues and I feel it. And that's a practice in itself of being really somatically aware of your body. But when you can get to that place through your own practices, and it doesn't have to be yoga, but that's certainly been a tool and a vehicle for me to get to that place of embodied awareness. So my nugget is be present, be mindful in those moments. Like we started off talking about this at the beginning, because that's what you are in control of. And those moments will build up so that when you're facing these bigger challenges, you have tools and you know how to come back into your breath, into your parasympathetic rest and digest part of your nervous system. Instead of being fight or flight or freeze or fodder, you don't have to be there. Like we have tools and resilience. And the last thing I want to say is when I do my morning ritual and prayer, I ask for kind and loving and gentle lessons, because they can come really harsh. And so I'm always putting the universe like, I'm really open to all these lessons, but please be gentle with the lessons so that I can take them on one at a time.
That's beautiful. I don't think you gave us nuggets. I think you gave us an entire ore.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth. We truly appreciate your time and your insights and your stories. One of the things that we love about A Warm Embrace is really giving platform for the sharing of stories. There's one thing that I believe is that we all have a story to share, and we can all learn as a collective from those stories, because all of our experiences, although not necessarily original, they're unique to us. They can teach so many different people when we have that willingness to share. So thank you so much for your time. And I want to just go ahead and ask you one more thing. If our followers were so inclined that they want to go ahead and be able to reach out to you, if they want to be able to interact with you, how can they go ahead and find you?
The best place to find me is my Instagram, and it's Dr. Elizabeth Wisniewski, and I can send that to you for the show notes or wherever you want to put that. But it's just my full name, and that's a great place to follow me, constantly putting out content there. Perinatal focus, but I mean, there's a lot of mindfulness woven in as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much once again. This has been a real treat for me personally, and also I know that it will be a retreat for our audience because the information and the insights that you gave us have been heaven sent. So thank you once again. Thank you so much. And to our wonderful viewers and our wonderful listeners, thank you again for giving us the space to be able to bring this episode to you. As always, you know that a warm embrace is available on all major social media platforms, and our podcast is available on all the podcast platforms along with YouTube. So we thank you. And as always, from our hearts to yours, a warm embrace.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us by liking and subscribing to our channel. Your small gesture means the world to us and helps us continue creating more content like this. See you in the next video.